Hello and welcome back to a really exciting video. I'm here today with Adam. I'm so humble.
Hello, and welcome to the Nordic Takedown podcast for everyone.
Yes, finally some more video format content. Today, this one has been a really long time coming for us. We are finally talking about Anakin Blue, and if it possibly is, question mark here behind me. It possibly is the best Twilight of the Republic deck in the current meta. Yep. That's of course a very big question. We won't ever have the answer to that question. But
no, it's always going to be different depending on what people showing up.
Yes.
Yeah, it's we're going to talk about that today. And as you said, we've been waiting for this like even since before the set was released. We've been talking about this deck behind the scenes. So yeah, this is going to be great.
Yeah, and to give you guys some context, the reason we haven't published a deck tech earlier is because Adam and a couple of testing partners have been really wanting to bring this deck to the Cantina Brawl, which was in Sweden this weekend. And of course, it's not that beneficial to just say, hello everyone, this is what I'm bringing, time to counter me.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was we were actually 3 people that was going to bring this list. We were 4 people working on it. It was me, Tobias Lind, and Johan Rosenströmer, and of course you as well, Jonah.
Yep.
So we 4 were like brewing this deck, talking for. I think I was the person like everyone was writing to, and then like tested ideas around. But yeah, so I was the like in Sweden we call it the spider in the web, something like that. And like so I got all the info and then like spit it out to the other ones. So
so we kind of wanted to keep kind of embargo for this weekend, so it's gonna be really nice to finally talk about it. So then the outline for the video really quick. We're first gonna talk about the deck concept, like what is this deck all about, and then a little bit how's Anakin doing in the meta currently, because it has been played quite a lot actually.
Yes.
Then move on to why Anakin at all, because this red-blue shell is not the first time we've seen it.
Nope.
And then we're going to touch a little bit on what makes our version different to others and why we think it's good. And then lastly, just briefly talk about matchups. We're trying to keep this video short and mention some cards that we possibly haven't mentioned.
Yeah, exactly.
So Adam, what's this deck about?
All right, so this is like it's quite different, but it's a soft control. It's not what you think like right when you see it. The blue-red has been like a little bit more mid-rangey before, but this deck concept is basically going around soft control to actually sometimes hard control. You have that option as well. It is the you sit very like passive in most of the games. It's very important with the pass to see what people do and make your decisions after what they do. So it's basically the control style. You take that role in almost every matchup.
Yeah.
And obviously you can change in between games, but
yeah. And I think what you mentioned there, kind of waiting to see what your opponent does, also resolves a lot around Anakin's leader ability.
Yes.
And that's what kind of enables you to play this control style, using your units to trade up and really take care of the board.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, you can use these non-traditional, like they are not like good early turn plays, but you can make them good turn 1 plays and still have the value that they bring for being bad turn 1 plays or turn 2 plays. So that is like what makes you can make it value with still not losing the early stuff with it.
And then
we have that's cool.
Next bullet here is the blue-red heroism shell. So Adam, these are some really good cards.
Yep, like as when you make a blue-red list, it's like this is what you go to. I think, especially on the hero side. You are looking at the discard package with the K2 force throw. obviously there is more cards in this shell that usually gets in there, but these are the key cards. Village Protector is just an OP card, so is Force Throw. Luke's the best 7-drop in the game still. And like in K2 might be the best 4-drop, one of. You could argue that Basin from Smuggle is better, but otherwise he's really strong. So yeah, that's what you're looking for, and that's what we like had as a baseline, right? This is we started from like our Ray Tarkenton deck when we were like screaming. It was me and Tobias in the beginning, screaming Tarkenton Ray. He was that, and I was Anakin Yellow. And we were not really satisfied at any point. And then he just wrote me afterwards, like, we really like Anakin and we really like the blue-red shell. So why just not play Anakin blue? And exactly. That's where we realized that just add it. Then we could get all the good package.
Yeah, there are just so many powerful cards in these colors, and a lot of them that really enable you to get these great values 2-for-1ing with Luke, with K2. And of course, Force Throwing has always been amazing.
Yeah, and like Force Throw feels better with the blue Force units than the yellow. It just does. I'm not sure why. Maybe the blue units are better. But yeah.
Yeah, and the next bullet here, the leader unit. That's kind of a big deal as well.
Yes, we were hinting about it a bit. The ability is disgusting. It is like maybe the most, like now when Boba is suspended, it is one of the best abilities in the game, if not the best, I would say. It's not awesome in every matchup, of course. No leader has that, but it's like it turns these, as we talked about, like you can play low HP units with high HP units with low attack damage to push them to be high attack units. So you like the Village Protector that we are showing here hits for 4 if I want to. K2 hits for 6, and then on the flip, Anakin benefits from having taken this damage anyway. Like it's not in most of the cases, it's not negative that he takes this damage.
And that's just good. That's exactly the point I wanted to say here. It's not only that we're playing all of these great cards in these colors, but also the fact that Anakin itself is such a big threat and can sometimes in many matchups be a win condition. But it's really hard to answer 7 HP with possibly 6 or 7 power as well.
Yeah, like many leaders you can sort of ignore sometimes. Like it's not because you're not afraid that they are going to hit you to death. Yeah. But like you just can't ignore Anakin, and then if you have multiple threats, it just becomes too much to deal with. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, and then lastly, this deck feels super flexible, right? So here are just some examples of Cassian is a very flexible card. Always great to utilize, either playing it for 3, being able to hit for 5, for instance, very important against Sabine, or having the smuggle. And on the complete opposite side, as you mentioned, you're playing soft control, you're controlling the board, but you also have some big top end with Crate Dragon.
Yes, I think that was one of the things, like in the beginning of the deck looked very different. Like you were one of the advocates for like adding the Crate Dragon in the beginning, because we were completely out of Crate Dragons. We turned out to end up on 2 main and 1 side in the end, which it's just great because as I realized how the deck really should be played, it became more obvious it's not mid-range, it's more control, and then you need this like extra big body to actually finish the game. Like Krenix and Kira have the Revenger, same as Bosk. Like they have these big things, and Red Blue only actually has access to Crate Dragon because I don't count Silo Beast as an option. And then Luke is so good as well, so he is a good end. But you need more than 3 cards to be able to end the game.
Yeah. Okay, I think in the interest of time, let's move on. So briefly, we're going to touch about how Anakin is doing in general. Because I feel like a lot of people have experimented with Anakin from the get-go, many different colors even. But blue has kind of gotten some attention.
Yes, I think that's the one that started popping off a little bit, and it just took off in Birmingham here. But that version, we're going to talk about that, did not perform. It was really bad in Birmingham. Most played deck did not make one or two decks made top 30.
Yeah.
And like that is just not good enough when it's the most played deck.
Yeah.
So
So we had
obviously,
two Anakins finishing 6-2.
yeah, which is like a solid result for sure. But
Yeah.
they were lower end 6-2s, right? So
Yeah. In the US, however, we did see some top 8s and even the top 4, I think. Lego Pizza, Ian did a really good run. And that's also something we're going to touch about because they played the lightsaber bravado thing.
yes, which is like to touch about it lightly. That is not a control style of deck. It's more of a combo. You're all in on these like lightsabers bravado, and it's no surprise it works better in the US because they play less control, right? They play more aggro, and versus aggro, the lightsabers and bravado, especially against Sabine, bravado is insane.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's like you only need to hit for 9 damage on their base, basically, to end them on the Anakin flip. As long as because Anakin will hit for 8 twice at least, right? And that's 16 plus 9. I think that's 25. So that option we don't really have. I think we're gonna go into it. I have a bravado in the sideboard, but we're not playing on that combo style. But it's also easier to counter someone that's so predictable, and I think that's what showed in Birmingham.
And we don't have a version up here, but we're gonna touch when we look at our version, kind of how they differ a bit. So do you think we should just move on to the list?
Yeah, I think so.
One last thing. I want to give a shout out to the deck take video they posted, Lego Pizza, and I think it was Jonathan Fisher's YouTube channel, the Boston Network guys. Really, really nice run through of the deck.
Yes.
And
sure.
KTOD also talked about Anakin a bit earlier. So
yeah, people have been talking about Anakin like in a while. They have not. It's this deck version that we have, like it differs quite a lot of cards, and it's a different deck if you pick up their version than ours.
Yeah. But before that, we have a quick side note here, because we've talked about the red blue shell being so good. I think Chirrut was maybe like the first version I guess saw like force throw, right?
The father of the blue discard, like force package. Yeah.
And then Ray kind of took over. People realized, okay, Chirrut is not as good anymore now with Rivals Fall. Ray has Restore. And then Han came into the picture.
Yeah, and they ended up sharing that spot, I guess, in set 2, even though Ray started it, Han 2 took over, and in the end, Ray actually rose.
Yeah.
So that's like, that's true.
And now we've gotten 2 new great options.
Yes. So real quick, why on everyone? Like, as you said, Chirrut is easily like, he wants to build a lot of upgrades, and we did not want to do that. So that's why he fell out. I think Han 2 is a solid option, but he is not a force unit, right? He doesn't help the force throw himself. Also, he's a little bit susceptible to the Tarkin towns that are running around, Cad Red, Django Red, which makes it his hero ability is not as good as it could be.
That's a really big deal. Yeah.
Then you have Yoda. He's a little bit too slow, in my opinion. Comes around later, but like if you were going head to head in this, Yoda would be like a bit better because he has another like removal spell, and Anakin.
Our version of Anakin to play like a Luke for 5.
Yes, yeah,
and also pretty crazy.
That is pretty nasty. Yeah. And in the end, why Anakin over Rey? Those are the most similar one. They drop on 6 both. Yeah. They both have abilities that actually elevate these noob cards with bad like power stats. But in the end, like Anakin does what Rey does. He boosts the damage, just that he takes it on the base instead, and can like play a 2-drop and do that instead of having to play a 1-drop and then buff it. And he's like way more of a threat when he flips. So in shortness, it's just a better leader.
And I feel like the tempo matters also, that you use the action and attack at the same time. With Rey, you have to give an experience first, so you're spending an extra action there.
Yes, you get more initiatives with Anakin, even if you play when you want at least. And then like he's actually, even though Ray has restore, he's actually better against aggro than Ray is, and we might talk about that later. But yeah.
All right. So finally,
yes,
here it is.
The list.
I want to state my favorite card in this list. I don't know if it's your favorite, but C3PO is just so nice. Every time I see an opening hand with C3PO, I'm happy.
Yeah, like C3PO is so fun in this deck. Like, of course he whiffs sometimes, but this deck is built around so many 3-drops. I can't remember how many it is now. I think it's 16, 17 or something like that.
Yeah.
Just alone, he actually draws cards. Yeah, it could be more. Yeah, especially off the side. No, but he draws, like, you usually get to try to do it twice, like at least twice in this list, which means he usually draws you one or two cards, and if you're lucky, he can draw you up to 3 cards alone.
Yeah.
Then you also have his partner R2 to like help him out sometimes.
Yeah.
Which means you get multiple times of the game of games you play, you get a very big card lead. That's why we talked about the flexibility of the deck. Sometimes you actually get this card lead and you can play off that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't because you didn't draw him, and then you have a different game you have to play. But I think he's like for sure my, what would you say, sleeper MVP, even though he of course doesn't end the game, but he helps you.
They are also kind of what sets our version a bit apart, right? Because in many Anakin lists we see 3 Quills and 3 Sabines.
Yes. And it makes sense when you want to be more aggressive. I see, like, in that sense it makes sense, but like, you don't really, like, Sabine is better than Quill in my opinion, right? Because she can hit for 5, so she can take a 3/5. Quill can't do that. Also against aggro, you cannot, like, the good part with R2 and C3PO, they have a 4 body. They don't die to 3 damage cards, which tends to be what people want to play. Even like in a Krennic, you want to play the 3/2 Rook sometime, or what is called. And then they just die if you want to trade. But here they don't die in trades, so you get these 2 or 3 ticks. They are really annoying to take down.
I just love that interaction you mentioned, where 3 3s were previously like some of the best thing you could play turn 1.
Yes.
But against the C3PO or R2, it's not that great, because if we start, it's just gonna get taken out immediately. And if they have the initiative, okay, they can attack base, then we still get the 2 for 1. Or if they attack into us, we still survive. There's 4 life.
We trade and didn't take damage. We didn't even have to take the +2. So I think that is the main difference, that we play that. And that's why it becomes a little bit more control, a bit more slow, because we don't get the same opportunity to push in like certain matchups. But in overall, it's like way better and way more consistent, in my opinion. Otherwise, it's quite similar with the Arc and the Interceptor, but they also, like, they are crazy good because they can plus up. And then we go a bit higher, of course. That is the other difference. I don't think these reset decks either go pillage.
Many just side them in. But honestly, I feel like in every game except aggro, the discard package is just so nice. And that kind of is the reasoning behind the 3 K2s and just 2 Canons as well. Right?
It's one of the reasons. It's also like for especially in the control matchup, when they tend to remove your units quite quick, K2 actually has an effect, which Kanan doesn't. Kanan just gets removed. Like, Kanan is definitely better in the aggro matchup, for sure, even though sometimes you still don't want to play him because you might rather want to play a Village Protector to protect that Yoda with a Force Throw for the round. So that there is 50 spots and Kanan didn't make 3 of them. I think some people would also like look at only one Obi-Wan, but for a long time it was 2. But Obi-Wan is like one of the cards that when you play him, he's really, really good. Otherwise, but most of the times you can't play him because he's so bad. And like when you take a gamble with Obi-Wan, you lose the game. completely. And he's not that good into aggro either, because if they have the ECL up, they just wrecker and just still get 6 damage to base. The wrecker survives somehow. So that is also a difference, I guess. But if you compare this one to the others, and of course we talked about Crate, disgustingly good. Wins games.
Like in Han, there was also a question like, do they have a place in main, or do they have to be sided in? But they just take up 2 cards. Like even though they're unplayable in many matchups, you're fine with that, because in the matchup where they're playable, they're just so good.
Yeah, and like in game ones, you can use them to force throw something. Like in the matchup, in the matchups where they are bad, you are not discarding the opponent's hand either way. Like that is not your game plan. So you can easily use your own hand to discard to kill. So they still have some value, and you kind of do still want to have some of these high cost cards. Because like one of the good plays in Han Blue was to like force throw a redemption, for example. This list doesn't run redemptions, so Crate Dragons fills that spot in game 1, basically.
That's a card that got cut later on, right?
Yep. Since we realized that Anakin basically don't get, like in the aggro matchup, you win or lose before the 7 resource turn. Like maybe you get to the 7 resource, but you never get to 8. That like unless something strange has happened, but that is so rare. So it was just not worth having it. And in other matchups, you don't really need to heal against control, right? And you don't want to heal against a mid-range and make your Anakin worse. So that one got cut. Other things that are interesting is probably in the sideboard that we have the Smoke and Cinders. That is a very late addition because of a Mr. Thor that got a nasty performance with the Bosk Blue. And I was afraid that was going to make an appearance. It actually did rub off in this tournament. There was multiple Bosk Blues. And the theory behind it is that because since we want to discard the hand from the control players, they want to draw a lot of cards, and Boss can double claim with Deathmark. And if that happens, you can play a Smoke and Cinders later when he has his 10-12 cards and you only have like 4, and you put the decks back into like an equal state, and then you actually have a higher chance of winning because you have Tex and Cassians, and he needs top deck answers to your so that was the theory behind that, and I still stand by that is good.
It's very situational.
Yes,
like pillages are often preferred, but as you said, if Bosk on the 5 resource double claims a Deathmark, you're kind of okay with just spending your 5 and playing Smoke and Cinders.
That you can also like just wait. You play the game until you draw that card, because the game is going to go long. He's never going to. And then the Bosk sits there, I think he has all the answers in the world, and you just play your stuff and empty your hand a bit, and then you play it, and then you start using your smuggles. Okay,
are we ready to go a bit more into the matchups?
Yeah, let's do.
So we've kind of divided it into 3 here: aggro, control, and the rest. So we will just briefly go over them, not in depth at all. But starting.
Starting with aggro then, I guess. So it's pretty close in the aggro matchup, I would say. I'd say Yango is the easier matchup. It's actually, I'd say you are pretty favored into Yango, but you're slightly disadvantaged into Sabine, especially pre-board. We do have like Conqueror on top targets for the Sabine matchup. Mostly, like they work for sure. Conqueror works against Django as well. But the top target isn't as amazing against Sabine as you may think, since like you have to spend an action doing it, then they hit with that unit, and then you get to kill it. So you don't save that much heal anyway. But still an okay like card to have there.
And very important to note is this version is just one version.
Yes.
It can always be more tailored towards aggro if you expect more of that, more tailored towards control. I would say this specific build is kind of more on the control side, right? We could play more open fire, more takedown, more perilous position, more conquer down, more Kanan. So a lot of tools we could actually increase to better the aggro matchup here.
Yes, there is a lot of ways to do that. Like I expected a pretty broad meta here, and then I wanted to be this list that is made here. You could say is pretty good into everything. I would say like favored to most, but never mega favored, right? So you have to pilot it really, really well. And then you're gonna be favored into almost anything. But there is like it's susceptible to like a good draw from an aggro player. Like Sabine can roll almost any deck if she draws well, and that's the same in this one.
And another card that you mentioned is quite great against aggro is Bravado, right?
Yes.
So you could also play more of this card.
I think that is a card you should add, like especially against Sabine. Like Django is a little bit grindier because he can tap you a lot, but Sabine, basically, if you have Bravado in your hand against Sabine, you can know that you only need to hit his base for 9 and not die on the Anakin flip. Then you're gonna win the game because Anakin will against a Sabine hit for 8 or 9. And if you don't, then you're already winning the matchup, so it doesn't matter.
You need to, of course, be wary of ECL and timely.
Yes, so you have to like protect the play, in a safe way. But that card is really good. I wish I drew it in the final, but So that is the aggro. It's tight. It's very interesting, but it's very winnable. Like it's not dead. You could mention Han 1 yellow in there as well. It's also a tight, very interesting matchup.
So control. That's maybe one of the weaker.
Yes and no.
Or like, more difficult, maybe.
It's a very difficult matchup to play for both sides, actually, especially like for the control players that faced us tournament, because they probably thought that, hey, we're facing the lightsaber reset, right? And it takes a while before you realize that and see how late this game deck goes. Because if the control player doesn't draw extra cards, they're gonna lose. Because you're gonna pillage them, we're gonna force throw them, and then we're gonna use our advantage to put like him into such awkward positions that he can't deal with every threat. So Bosk Blue has that advantage that they play Shilesen and Deathmark. A normal Deathmark claim is not that bad, but it's the double Deathmark claim that is really rough. So you have to play around that. That is the hard part.
So some additions that could be really good here is already the Smoke and Cinders mentioned, but also upgrade removal.
Yes, confiscates.
Confiscate.
That is especially for Bosk Blue. For the Palpatine, that doesn't really apply because it's quite different, but they have the same like end game plan, both these matchups, because Palp draws cards, but he draws it by killing his units. So you have to control his board. That's more important than you putting out threats on the board. And then you have to make some small threats that just hits him all the time. So he has to make a bad Palp flip. And then you work on the discarding cards from his hand. The different Palp has over Bosk, he doesn't have the Death Mark, which is sad. Doesn't have Shilesen, but he does have Ramp. So you can get behind, and you might have to flip to be a control until you can hit, which is a very special dynamic. And I haven't really played that much of those in Star Wars Unlimited, where you aren't the control deck, but you have to be the control deck before you can become the aggressor again. It's a very interesting deck. And very interesting matchups. Very exhausting. You have to play those fast if you're going to have to play 3.
Definitely. And the reason there's not much bullets here for the rest is because that's maybe where this deck shines the most. Like,
Yes.
it feels so good into any deck.
Yeah. Yes. I did say that it hasn't any like free wins, but it does. Like versus like the normal built casual deck, you just can't lose if you play this correctly. It is. It's too strong. It has too many options. You have too much value in it. And even like other mid-range decks, like or soft control decks, like Krennic is completely. He has like no chance basically to win unless you draw so bad, because you have answer to his big units, and then you pull his hand, and he doesn't have the card draw really, and then you just wait. You just wait until they are out of options, and then your options are limitless, and you just beat them. But you have free wins, but they don't necessarily feel free when you're new to the deck. But like when you have played it a few hundred times, you know that, okay, I've already won this game. We need to play it out, and I have to play it out correctly. But this game is won.
Yeah.
So that's the rest is like where the deck feels really annoying to play against. You choke your opponent like crazy. Like that's what you do. You choke them, and it's just like these four basically that's up there. Those have the most annoying tools to deal with our choke, basically. I would say.
Okay, we are reaching the end. This last slide is just some honorable mentions cards. We have touched quickly on Redemption.
Yes.
Why it wasn't.
So we might not need to dive deep in that, but because it's basically that. Because in the matchup where it's good, the game's already over. Because either Anakin has smashed, we have smashed the opponent with Anakin's flip, or they have smashed us and we couldn't like stabilize. I think we can go over to Hello There, which was pretty nice. It was like an open fire that also dealt with the lurking TIE Phantom was the big one.
Also, Lucas gained a bit of popularity, right? So getting past shields is useful.
Getting past shields was really important, and also crafty smugglers and stuff like that if they came later.
And the fact that you can use it on a leader and then just trade with Anakin or whatever.
7 Fleet Defender, for example, like there is a lot. But we realized after a while that Perillia's position just does kind of the same, and you can do it later as well. It doesn't like what Perillia's doesn't do is like answer these 4 HP units when they come out. You can't just remove it.
So that's also like maybe a fun fact. I think Perilous Position is the only card here from the new set, except for Anakin. But it's one of the best.
Yes. Okay, Anakin's Interceptor.
Yeah.
But that could be an A-Wing. Like, it's not that big of a difference. Like,
so Perilous is kind of just too good.
It was too good. It took a long time before it worked into my list, but in the end it was not really a debate. So Obi-Wan's what was it called? Aether Sprite. It's a cool addition. Like if you feel like you need more space in the meta, like it could be pretty good against Yango because it can deal damage to another space unit stuff.
There's a lot of spaceships there with 2 or less HP.
So there it could be good, but it is in the Poe spot, so you have to like really. For me, it was just not worth the Poe spot. Basically, Poe is more flexible. Poe can also shoot 2 damage out in space. If you throw cards, which you usually have the more the bigger hand with 3PO and stuff.
And
but it's a good body, like for 5, for 6.
And Regional Governor, I think, is super interesting. I've been wanting to find space for it, but it's difficult to cut R2 and C3PO. They're just so nice. But I think now you go.
Yes, and I can say like I would also like to have them more. Like you have to cut in the space. So you have to, and Django is an okay matchup, so maybe you can do that. Like, but you will cut and in that matchup a lot, and you might have to accept that you will lose more against those decks.
Yeah.
But because the governor is just as R2 and C3PO, right? It's a 1/4 that becomes a 3/4, and she's also like pretty good. You can name like Supplies Technician Resupply. You can use the Death Mark, so she increases your chance against control quite a lot.
Yeah.
So you have to make that trade-off to yourself. I think Governor is the closest card to get into this list, like by far of those we mentioned. So yeah, that one is the Governor is really good, and maybe there is a spot for a one-off or two, and maybe not three. Maybe a sideboard slot, depending on how you want to do it. But that one is it might even be in Tobias' list because he couldn't make the tournament. But so yeah, it's a really good card, and then, it does really good stuff.
Lastly, I wanted to mention the Razor Crest. It's a bit on the side here because it's I think it's a cool card, getting more perilous position back. But since we don't play the lightsabers, we haven't really considered it, right?
No, the body is not good enough to justify just getting back. But we really see the value, of course, of having it in the Jedi lightsaber package with 3 perilous 3 lightsabers.
Yeah.
That makes way more sense. We just think that it's just a way worse deck in like if you go to the spectrum of decks, like if you going into a big tournament and expect to face like very very many decks, what's going to be my English?
I guess.
A lot of different decks.
And more control-y.
And more control-y stuff. We think that this one works a lot better, and that's... but the Razor Crest getting back is also value, like more cards. So I think I see the value. But...
Looking at the time here, let's try to wrap this up. We are going to talk more about the tournament results. This is just mainly going to be about the deck, but definitely check out the stream from the Cantina Brawl and the upcoming tournament breakdown we're going to post. We can say we've both done really well with this list in the Take the Initiative League as well.
7-1, I think I went. Yeah.
Same for me. Just 2 games were played with a different deck, but so 5-1 with Anakin. Yeah. And you were the only undefeated one in Cantina Brawl with Anakin, so that was also really good to see.
So stay tuned for the tournament breakdown. It should be coming up pretty soon. We want to do it quick, and then until then, you can actually watch a lot of the games that I played on the stream if you want to see how it's played under pressure. I think I had like 3 or 4 games at least on stream. So check out that stream here on the channel, and some great commentating of Jonah and multiple guests.
That was fun. All right, that's gonna be it for this one. Definitely try out the deck. Let us know in the comments if you think it performs, or if you completely disagree with us and think this is a bad deck.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you have the suggestions on how to into the Discord, and like we have a talk about the deck and like try out.
Definitely. So. Yes. All right, that's it. See you in the next one.
See ya.